In 2512, the savage Norsemen began to spill out of the north to ravage the lands of the south. The only warnings of their raids were through the harsh blaring of war horns. The Northmen tore their way through the lands of Kislev and soon came to the Empire, burning cities and towns and turning whole armies. In response, the Imperial Navy sent an armada of warships to the Sea of Claws to stem the tide of raiders. However, it was Ostland that took the most aggressive steps of all. Led by Elector Count Valmir von Rakov and his son and heir, Oleg von Rakov, the province of Ostland girded itself for war. Valmir von Rakov, a warlike man, had suggested to raid the lands of the enemy, into the lands of Norska. With a new massive army of mustered state troops, Valmir led the raids in 2513, putting several coastal towns of Norska to the torch. Valmir's raids, for all their bluster, do not manage to penetrate very far inland, and were primarily contained to the Norskan coastline. His son Oleg had perhaps exceeded his father in that regard, having destroyed many settlements along the Norskan coast. Among them were the towns of Arvik and Uffelnik. Valmir and his heir returned late in the year, with destroying 7 Norskan villages. Much of the empire, noble and commoner alike, toasted the accomplishments of the von Rakovs. In 2514, after the last raids into Norska had returned home, Valmir von Rakov had received an urgent summon from the Emperor Karl Franz. Tension was rife between the Empire and Bretonnia, due to his border troubles along the Grey Mountains. Hoping a show of strength at the council would intimidate King Leoncur, Karl Franz requested that many attend, including Valmir, his most warlike Elector Count. This took Valmir far from his lands. He left control of the provinces to his sons, trusting their judgment and strength of the Ostforts. Valmir only claimed 2 children as his own. His wife, the Countess Ivana, bore Valmir 2 sons, the heirs of the ruling throne of Ostland, Vasily and Oleg, 2 men greatly different in character. Vasily was the eldest son, a man in the line to inherit the rule of Ostland. He was widely regarded as frail and sickly, and was frankly an embarrassment to his warlike father. The younger brother was much more like his father, a bold leader of man and a warrior born. The youngest von Rakov famously chose to fight on foot, marching with his own great swords, the Scarlet Bulls. Not long after Valmir von Rakov rode southwards, even before the snows of winter had begun to melt, there were grim tales along the borders of Ostland. Ferocious creatures and many war bands were wandering the plains of Kislev. In the year 2515, the attacks on the Empire were unlike anything seen in recent memory. The roiling storms within the Chaos Realm burst forward with unbridled fury. An army descended from Norska across the Sea of Claws. It set towns along the coast ablaze, but was neither large nor bold enough to threaten the major cities and keeps. Another host plunged southwards, in a broad front into Kislev, causing a swath of destruction. But the third attack was led by Prince Sigvald the Magnificent. Sigvald's army blazed through Kislev and into Ostland on a 3-month rampage, until it was finally blunted at the Battle of the Temple of Skulls. A coalition of the many imperial states had come to the aid of the province of Ostland, who, beset by many dangers, had put forth a call to help. But these attacks were just a foreshadowing of what was to come. The most powerful thrust was led by Lord Mortkin, a favored scion of Chaos. This horde of iron-bound warriors, barbaric tribes, and hellspawn demons was the most powerful army to cross the borders of the Empire in an age. The Chaos host left only smoldering ruin in their wake. It seemed that naught could stem this evil tide, and that a new era of darkness was about to descend upon the old world. As the separate armies under Lord Mortkin began their advances, they continued to absorb barbaric tribes and newly materialized demons into their number. Those who refused to join were crushed or driven before the oncoming host. The lands of Kislev, still covered in melting snow, were beset by displaced reavers. The countryside was aflame as warbands laid waste to all they encountered. In the ruins of the scorched town of Zekasgrad, Lord Mortkin paused the endless columns and commanded Zakar to perform the ritual of the shriveled hands, an accursed spell that would help locate beastmen and summon them to war. Mortkin wished to re-establish the old bonds with the beastmen. Messengers rode out to seek what lay hidden in the twisted forests. Even as word from the north drifted in, Oleg von Rakov wasted no time in council. He deployed many of the newly mustered state troops into Ostforts along the northern border, and led a sizable force into Kislev, joining with Peter Sergeyevich of Erengrad. There, with his fast-moving cavalry allies, Oleg hoped to confront and destroy any invaders on the plains before they could reach Ostland. The far-riding Kislevite scouts made sightings of the Chaos Spearhead. Against the obvious might of such a foe, Peter Sergeyevich suggested falling back behind a screen of mounted archers, a classic Kislev maneuver. But Oleg, ever reckless, convinced the Kislevite to join the Ostlands in making a stand at the hill before the river Linsk. It was to prove an ill choice. Lord Mortkin sent the horsemen of the Scourge of the North tribe to his right flank. His own fell legion formed the front. Human strength and steel were pitted against chaos armor and the corrupt gifts of the patron gods. The chaos numbers were too great. With an earth-shattering charge, the brass riders, dark knights on metal behemoths, broke through the center of the human army. A massacre was to follow. The shattered winged lances broke for Erengrad only to be ridden down by the Scourge of the North tribesmen. Lord Mortkin released a demonic host to chase the fleeing Ostlanders. Timber palisades of the Ostforts proved no defense against the fury of such unnatural foes. By nightfall, flames marked the sites of each border fort. Survivors streamed from the ruined watchtowers. Rallying those he could, Oleg von Rakov headed for the walled city of Volganof, where he hoped to regroup his shattered army. Urgent messengers were sent to nearby provinces. They were finally aware this is no raid, but an invasion capable of wiping Ostland off the map. Although not above political squabbles, the provinces and city-states of the Empire pulled together at need. With Ostland under siege, many armies were mustered. The roads resounded to the drums of war as many armies marched north. The riverways, the great arteries of the Empire, were clogged with ships rushing to the aid of the beleaguered brethren. No aid would come in time to save Castle Rakov. Steam-driven metal siege towers rolled forward, shrugging off cannonballs. Vasily and his bodyguard fled via secret tunnels, making their way towards the city of Volganof. All others, including his mother, Ivana von Rakov, were never heard from again. Volganof is one of the largest cities in Ostland, but unlike the provincial capital Wolfenburg, it is fully enclosed with massive thick walls, replete with towers and battlements. It was to Volganof that refugees fled, filling the cramped cobblestone streets. Soldiers also straggled into the city, leaving behind them burnt and ruined forts and towns. With growing dread, the city guard atop the battlements watched the hordes of chaos emerge from the forest of shadows. Volganof's wall had never been breached, but now it stood surrounded by a foe unlike any other. Rumor of the advancing chaos armies ran rampant through the overcrowded city of Volganov. Every refugee came through the gates bringing a new tale of horror. In this atmosphere of growing despair, a solid wall of unnatural black cloud appeared over Volganov. It grew so gloomy that the surrounding forest of shadow could barely be discerned from the watchtowers. To the harsh blaring of horns, Lord Mortkin appeared. He was flanked on his right by a towering demon, a bat-winged monstrosity. On the Chaos Lord's left hovered a floating island, a great hunk of ground ripped from the earth itself to serve as a mount for Zakar, the Chaos Sorcerer. From the void behind the iron helm came the ultimatum that echoed across the distance, booming loud for all to hear.
Surrender von Rakov to me, or I will crush your city. All of Volganov will die, and I swear to the gods, your suffering will be great. You have a single day to decide your fate.
Stunned by the obvious might of the Chaos Lord, soon all of Volganov began to talk. From highborn nobles to soldiers, craftsmen to innkeepers, there was no doubt as to whom the armored barbarian king had referred. Oleg von Rakov, the true son of the Elector Count and pride of Ostland. So outraged and overwhelmed was the cry of refusal that the few cowardly dissenters who would have given up their commander without a fight dared not speak their minds. This stubborn spirit, for which Ostlanders had been famed, helped to convince Oleg not to give himself up, for surely the ruthless invaders would have only slaughtered him and attacked Volganov regardless. The Ostland phrase, "a wolf at the door is still a wolf," came to mind. The following day, when once again to the blast of many horns, Lord Mortkin emerged from the forest. He was answered not in a human voice, but by the tongues of fire. Every cannon atop the walls of Volganof fired a single shot. At such an extreme range, there was little chance of the cannonballs scoring a direct hit, yet the shots seemed to vanish in the shadowy murk. Lord Mortkin raised his axe and flames erupted along its blade. At this gesture, the woods heaved and the forest of shadows emptied its hidden horde. Hey guys, this is Keg. This is just part one of a two-part series. This is going to be a really long video otherwise, so I just split it up into two. So this is the first half, everything leading up to the siege. Now the siege is beginning. The siege is going to be the second part of the video, which I'm going to upload as soon as I can. If you like what you're watching, then, check out my other videos, subscribe, tell your friends about it. But I'm off to work now because YouTube doesn't pay my bills.